Welcome to Bloomfield in Focus. I'm Township Supervisor Mike McCready, and today I'm joined by our Fire Chief John LeRoy and our Police Chief James Gallagher. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, nice of you to spend some time with us today. I want to take a look back at the year 2025. For me, it was a very learning year for me to kind of understand how you work, what you do, why you do it. But one thing that I've been most impressed with is the training that your men and women in uniform go through and spend time on. I mean, I know they work 24-hour shifts, but John, for instance, in the fire and rescue, you're constantly training your men and women.
Yes, our training is, when everybody thinks of the fire department, it's not just fires. It's fires, it's EMS, technical rescue, hazmat. There's so many different groupings that need training for all these different incidents that we've taken on over the years.
And every response is different.
And every response is different, and every scene is different, from a car accident to a fire to a car through a building.
Right. And like James, with your department, we've restocked the shelves, so to speak, with, you have, 10 or 11 new police officers in uniform that graduated from the academy and have started, and they're out there learning, and I watch how you're sending them through a training program.
Yeah, we're in that transition period for our agency, which is exciting, but there's a couple things that keep you up at night, right, is how young we've become as an agency. Yeah. So it's twofold for us. We have our field training program, which is what those new officers and recruit officers go through after the police academy, or even if they're lateral hires from other agencies, we still put them through up to a 17 or 18-week field training program. And so they're with a seasoned officer, an experienced officer for a month each phase, and usually it's about 4 phases. We go along there, and that's taxing on the officers. The field training officers, they go to specialized school to be a trainer, and they're constantly evaluating and making sure and coaching along the way. And then we have the preparedness side of it, and we just got done. In September, we transitioned to new firearms to make us safer and to more accuracy and a better field use with that. But that requires a ton of training that we do with that. And we brought in a gentleman with some significant military experience who helped us out greatly. And then we transitioned into in October, we had our rifle training. Once a year, we go to an outdoor range and we practice, deploying our rifles from a multitude of scenarios, from the patrol car, just accuracy type, marksmanship type shooting. And then just 2 weeks ago, we finished our reality-based training up at the Crest Center in Auburn Hills. And that's a specialized training for everybody in the agency. Myself, I went through it as well, our captains, all the way down. We kind of rotate on how we do it. Usually 1 year we'll do active assailant type training. You're responding to school shootings or responding to open air incidents. This year we focused on kind of the basics. Just, dispatch was involved, and they send us to runs, and we have proctors, and we literally we train on traffic stops in response to all sorts of calls.
Yeah, and so there's 2 groups names I've started to come familiar with, OAKWAY and OAKTEC. Can you tell us the difference between OAKWAY and OAKTEC and what the purpose of each one of those organizations is?
OAKWAY is our mutual aid organization.
Okay.
It's 11 full-time fire departments all around us in southern Oakland County. We work together on a daily basis while responding to mutual aid. We have teams of technical rescue technicians and hazmat technicians ready to respond as a group. Those are very expensive for low frequency, high risk type of situations. And all the equipment is very expensive for one fire department to have. So we kind of all share in the pooling of resources, and then we train together, practice together, so when an incident happens, we respond together and we know how to work together.
And then OAKTEC?
OAKTEC was formed in 2009. The sheriff saw a need for consistent training throughout the county when it became to act as a violence, and it came after the Mumbai attacks is where the idea came from. The OAKTEC initially started with 6 agencies involved in it, and it's now 48 plus agencies, just police agencies throughout the county, covering 97% of the county. And what OAKTEC is strength in numbers, strength in partnerships. We all train the same terminology. We all train the same techniques, verbiage when we go into incidents of acts of violence. And with that, we just kind of remodeled it recently, reorganized a little bit where it's training, response, and recovery. What we've seen over the years is that no one agency can manage a critical incident. And that's not to the fault of their own. It's just so demanding on services.
Right.
And we still have a community to protect outside of an incident. And so that consistent training, when we do that, I can partner with members from West Bloomfield and Troy and Auburn Hills who border us in the response to a scene, and we're going to be able to enter that building with the same way.
Right. And I know you've been you've had a lot of responses over the last couple of weeks. We've had some over the last month. And I think about when on the corner of Long Lake and Telegraph, we had that car that drove through that strip mall. And we're not sure exactly what caused that yet, but there were people hurt on the scene, and both fire and police were there. And then we also had to send over our ordinance department because that building and part of it became unsafe and unstable, which had to be inspected. And your people respond, and they're prepared to deal with whatever is going on there. And in that instance, we had, 5 or 6 people that were hurt from it being inside the building and hit by the car.
Yes, we had 5 patients that day, all of which were transported in various conditions to the hospitals. And working with the hospitals, the police department, we have to evaluate that scene very quickly, be able to remove the patients quickly, determine whether the building's safe for operating in,
Right.
and move from there to the point where, 2 of the patients were transported as priority patients in the hospitals. It's a mass casualty incident.
Right, and I know the police are on the scene, and they're providing protection, and as well as the traffic control, because I'm watching Telegraph Road northbound now. It is backed up because you have to reroute people. You have to clear a space for everybody to work in.
Yeah. In a situation like that, it goes back to having the relationships with the people and knowing the people. When I arrived on scene there, my shift command, our shift lieutenants, and the battalion chief from the fire department, along with the assistant fire chief, were already out there assessing many things. Right, this car, we don't know, did it leave Telegraph and go through? Was it parked in front of the building and drive through?
Right.
The difference is going to be the speed and penetration into the building. This vehicle, again, this just happened, less than a week ago, ended up nearly in the kitchen. So we had water problems in the building. We had gas, did they hit a gas line in the building? There's a lot of things that go along while fire department's inside trying to render aid to people, but there's still other things that have to take place for safety and security on the outside of that building. In this situation, again, we had all 4 of our fire departments and a West Bloomfield fire department respond. And as it always goes, when you have an incident like that, we had other medical runs come in that the fire department needed,
at the same time.
At the same time.
Right.
So
I remember hearing
we were sitting there in West Bloomfield, running lights and sirens through our township on our behalf to go to a different call. Yeah. So the coordination comes back to building those training relationships long time ago. But what's most important, I think, is for our residents to know that the communication and the relationship that we have, they should be proud of. That's not like that everywhere, but we train consistently together. Example is just the other day, one of their Assistant Chief Hush reached out and said, "Hey, there's so much turnover with bosses. Can we have a meeting together at a command meeting so we can get back into that rhythm?" So
no, I give you guys credit because you work well together and you can see the teamwork. And I've watched it. And one incident that pops into my mind is that one gentleman who ended up dying. It was a medical incident. He's going up Telegraph Road northbound, bouncing off each curb. And I remember you all getting together because eventually it ended up he didn't make it. He passed. But it was such a bad accident. He was going so fast. And fire came in to block the road and create privacy so police could come in and do their investigation without worrying about cars speeding up on them. And also because of the way this gentleman had created the scene, that whole road was shut down. You had to reroute traffic, yet you had to have your guys cutting them out.
Yes. Firemen
had to come in and cut them out of the car. You had to have your paramedics there. And anyway, I don't think he made it past that accident, but it was great teamwork on that. And tell us a little bit about that situation, can you?
That incident, the car was destroyed. When we arrived on scene, there was very, very little survivable space in the car.
Yeah.
You knew it was going to be a difficult extrication at that point. Ironically, that month we had GM had donated a whole bunch of cars to us, and we were actually effectively cutting cars up at our training grounds and practicing just those types of scenarios for that.
Right.
So fortunately, all of our apparatus in Bloomfield Township, all of our engines and our heavy rescue all have the jaws of life. We have so many sets of extrication equipment that allows us to effectively and efficiently remove a patient from a vehicle. And then working with the police department, securing the roads, blocking the scene, making sure there is privacy. It is a bad accident. Everybody doesn't need to see what we have to see.
Right. They don't need to see it. Plus, Jimmy, you're there and you're steering these cars through neighborhoods, which angers the community, but what choice do we have?
Yeah, and unfortunately, this situation was our second one in that intersection. This was about a month ago now, but we had within 3 weeks, that intersection had just happened to have multiple bad accidents, so we affected traffic. That is one of the concerns, and that's been a concern really since the 696 shutdown has made it a lot worse for us, is the traffic through our neighborhoods.
Right.
And I know we're talking critical incidents, but when we have an incident on Telegraph like that, I took calls from angry residents on Echo because Echo became a speedway, and their concerns are very valid. Unfortunately, when an incident like that happens, we could put 40 police cars out there, and we don't have enough when an incident, especially an agency like ours, where you have a major thoroughfare such as Woodward, Telegraph, and I-75. You get an intersection and a major intersection, and this one happened to be 10:30 in the morning, basically. That's going to cause a lot of problems, and it's going to take a lot of resources for us to manage.
It's going to back it up for miles and take hours.
That one, I was getting people calling me saying it's backed up past 696.
Right.
So it happens, and unfortunately, what's more important though is what we ask the residents and our is, in this case, we had a loss of life, and so just a little bit of understanding, knowing that we owe it to the families of the victims involved to give a proper investigation. And in this situation, we created a barrier around the fire with the fire trucks, so that people aren't. We had a lot of people with video cameras. We have to worry about drones now, video and things that don't need to be out there on. And the media is very good about what they can and can't show. It's the private people who come in and take video and then just put it live on Facebook or Instagram.
Yeah, that can be damaging.
It's dignity to the individual involved.
Yeah, that's a good point. And we're fortunate enough that we've invested and continue to invest in your department, so you have the proper tools and the people trained to how to use them, which I think our residents expect you to have those things. And the big one, obviously, was the Grand Blanc situation, the fire that happened up there. That was an incredible amount of damage by one individual. And we helped respond to back up Grand Blanc while they addressed that situation. John, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, in Grand Blanc, it happened on this day of our township open house. So very early on in the open house, my phone started going off with alerts of what was going on in Genesee County. And picture that scene as a very, very large church, which the fire in and of itself would be a very large fire. But then you add in an active assailant, and on top of it, it depletes the resources. It depleted the resources for basically 2 counties. Oakland County, all of Genesee County, and the northern third of Oakland County, the resources were depleted to Genesee County. So what that, in turn, through Oakland County Emergency Management, through the OAKWAY Mutual Aid Association, and the MABUS Mutual Aid Box Alarm Association, we started moving assets around to try to balance the response areas, because like Chief Gallagher said, the incidents don't stop when one event happens. So the OAKWAY assets, the southern Oakland County covered northern Oakland County with at their fire stations. We staffed 4 stations up there with medic engines, and then over the course of the night, the Grand Blanc firefighters were coming back, and they were mentally and physically exhausted to the point where they needed assistance throughout the night. And Bloomfield Township, when they made the request at about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, I sent our engine up there as a medic engine with 4 personnel. I didn't want to ask anybody else to do it. I was in charge of running operations in northern Oakland County, so I shifted our engine up there to cover for them, and they stayed the entire night until 8 o'clock the next morning, covering any incidents that may happen in Grand Blanc Township.
Yeah, and I think it's important to understand that we have to look at resources, right? Typically, it's just by chance, by the way things work. Nights and weekends, you're going to have less resources and personnel available at stations to do things. I spoke to the Grand Blanc chief the other day. He came to an OAKTEC meeting and he talked a little bit about it. But the most of the agencies in Genesee County are 7 to 8 man departments. You have Flint, Grand Blanc, and the Sheriff's Department in Genesee County are the largest agencies there, equipped to handle a situation like that. And typically, an incident like Grand Blanc, a lot of the active shooter incidents are police heavy at the beginning. If there's no victims, it's all police. But once the scene is rendered safe, or when I say safe, like what we call a cool zone or a warm zone, fire departments are prepared to come in. And in Grand Blanc, this was different, because this was a police situation at first, but then he sets fire to the building, and police can't do their jobs if the fire department can't get there. The challenge there was that the individual, sets the church on fire, but he had IEDs, explosives, homemade fireworks explosives in the building that were going off, and he had rounds of ammunition that were going off in the building as well. So as a fire department's trying to make entry, they don't know if they're being fired upon by additional assailants,
right,
or
just
because of the
background noise, the IEDs.
It's the things going through. Not only that, we teach run, hide, fight, or Alice drills. All right, and that's what they did. People were run, hiding, and fighting when they couldn't. But then they were hiding in closets and everything else, and now the building's on fire. So my understanding is the body cam, if it's ever released, is going to be pretty impressive when it comes to police and fire's response to this. In reality, they're true heroes with a very difficult situation. But I think most important is people would be, why was Bloomfield Township go, or why would we send resources? Because not one agency can do that. And in 2019, when we had our scare at our high school, over 200 officers responded. When Corewell Health happened in Troy just a couple months ago, we had 200 or 300 officers on scene, and we could have used more. It's how you clear buildings and how we get through things is so critical to getting, and doing it with just 8 people is not going to work.
Right. So, no, the teamwork is, it's impressive how you have all come together for the county, but for a neighboring county as well. It's having not the right amount of people, but trained people, and you don't know what to expect is what I'm picking up on. Every situation you walk into is a little bit different.
Yeah, and I think you said it at the beginning. The things you've learned in a year now, basically, that you've been here, is we always knew, and I think we always pride ourselves on saying how great a departments we have, because we are so fortunate. We get to sit in the chairs that lead the agencies.
Right.
But when the reality is, right now, the real people doing the work are sitting in patrol cars, fire trucks, and ambulances, performing the services every day, and they're the ones who deserve the credit. But I would imagine, even Bloomfield Township, you can't believe how much busier we are than you probably ever thought.
No, because now I'm really paying attention. Yeah. And even when I'm home, I'm listening for sirens now, to kind of get an idea. And I witnessed, I was actually in bed, and it was 2 a.m. a couple of weeks ago when the time change was happening. And I heard an accident right outside. And apparently it was a drunk driver, might have rolled their car. And I'm watching the clock, and I'm getting up to see what's going on. And as I'm watching the clock, within 3 minutes, I could hear our sirens. And I'm like, wow. And they were on the scene within 5 minutes of the accident happening. It's impressive. I mean, John and James, your guys and gals were there. The response time was, I was taken back by it. Yeah.
And that's, we talk about it all the time. That's why it's so important for the infrastructure that we have, the equipment that we have. It's critical to the response for our residents. It's critical.
Right.
And obviously, do we wish we always had more of it? Absolutely. In budget talks, as we're pleading and begging for things. But,
absolutely. Right.
But there's a reason behind it. And we've been very fortunate this year when we talk about it with Steckloff's office helping us out with some grant money. And the preparedness appropriation money.
Right.
Where we were able to buy additional fire gear. Yep. We got a command vehicle, and a UTV, and a drone. At those appropriations.
Our state representative and state senator have done a nice job supporting our our investment into the services, and we thank them for that.
Yep.
But I have to tell you, I was talking to some of your men that were responding to some of these emergencies, and in the firehouse, they may be in a dead sleep, and that alarm goes off, and they're jumping in their boots, headed out the door within, I think he told me, less than 2 minutes.
In the middle of the night, and on a fire or a medical, our goal is to be out the door in a minute and a half.
Right.
Which is a lot. It's taxing on the personnel.
I'm sure.
Over their physical. We've invested in some equipment that allows them to wake up more gently.
Okay.
Instead of a bell going off that shocks their heart as they're sleeping, to slowly raise the audible alarm to try to bring them up so they get up quickly. But our goal is to be out the door in a minute and a half and on the road.
Right.
Police department has the ability. They're already on the streets and they can get out quicker and on scene quicker.
Right.
But it also, with their help, they give us more information because a lot of times they're there first.
Yeah.
Mike, one of the things you said kind of early on is really how things have changed in our time. And, just a month and a half ago, almost 2 months ago now, we had that individual living in the home with his deceased spouse. When I arrived on scene was obviously an hour into the incident. And when you talk about how things change, when I rolled up, the fire department was in their full tactical gear, vests, prepared because we were in a little bit of a standoff with an individual, but prepared, if one of us were to get injured, to render aid immediately.
Right.
And that's what's changed, really, is that the fire departments, while they still may be staged in an active incident, they're prepared if the situation happens to come render aid. And when we started, ballistic gear for a fire department was unheard of.
Really?
Well,
that's what went through at that OAKWAY training I went through is with your people is to go into a shooting scene wearing a bulletproof vest and a helmet, and we're supposed to be the paramedics on the scene, and to have a SWAT team protecting you. I can't imagine in real life the adrenaline and the mind, what's happening, and you have to be trained for that. And that's walking into that house. I remember where there was deceased wife on the couch for up to 3 months.
Will we think about that? Yes.
Yeah, and I saw the body cam on that, and I just, you can't have enough paper clips to plug your nose just to start to think about the smell.
Yeah, in those types of situations is exactly the reason why that trust between them. A fire department, they're not armed.
No.
And so when we go into a building or a house and we order them in to help us, they have to trust we're going to do our jobs. And again, that's why training together is so important.
Yeah.
And as we get this turnover, that we have our men and women meeting each other, being trained with each other, because again, you have to have that trust factor. They're working with their heads down, triaging a patient, whether it's putting a tourniquet on.
Someone's got to watch their back.
Somebody's got to watch their back, and they have to know mentally that they can be distracted and down.
So let's talk about moving in now to 2026. What do you see on the horizon, and what's the kind of the game plan for you for 2026?
Well, in 2026, we've already had the discussions. We are going to continue that training in the active assailant realm because tactics are constantly changing. It used to be we would prepare for only one certain aspect. Well, now we've learned we have to prepare for multiple different aspects. We just saw a fire used as a weapon, and we're gonna train multiple different ways in order to not just rescue task force that we've always done, but different types of trainings involving multiple different types of scenes.
Yeah, and I think for us, 2026 is still going to bring us new officers. We still have 3 that just started training on the road. We have 3 more in the academy, and I still have 2 openings. So our focus really for us is still going to be, training up our new generation of law enforcement. Making sure we're supervising correctly and providing the support that they need. Again, there's something new all the time with this job. And I'll tell you, the new recruits who just got out of training on the road have experienced and seen some things in my 25 years that I haven't responded to. I've been on the scene of them, but not as the primary officer. So there's things there. We'll obviously, the number one thing on both of our minds is officer wellness, first responder wellness.
Right.
That's critical for us, and moving forward and dealing with our infrastructure problems. Right. We are maxed out at our station right now with space and that. And,
Right.
And those are things that.
And we're going to work on addressing that. Yeah, that'll be good because we need a new fire station at Maple and Telegraph, which we're actively looking at.
Yes.
And then we need a new police department. What you're working in right now are conditions that are not good.
They're not representative of our community.
No, but you're jammed in there like 10 pounds of potatoes in a 5-pound sack.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
getting there. So, there's just some things that we have to start addressing as an agency moving forward.
Well, thank you for being with us today, and I appreciate your leadership, and thank your men and women in uniform for what they do to protect our community, because that, I think, is first and foremost, and anybody who lives in this community, what we want.
Yeah, and we got to thank our veterans this week as we're on this show.
That's right.
We
Yeah.
have several.
We do, don't we?
We have
Yeah, we
several.
do.
Several veterans. Yeah, it's Veterans Day. So thank you for your service. Thank you for protecting us. And we'll look forward to our next time together.
All right, well, thank you for
Thank
having
you.
us.
Thanks for having us.
Okay.